The hum of the engines filled the cabin as the plane cruised through the clouds at 35,000 feet. Row 12 was quiet except for the soft hum of a little girl's voice humming along with the in-flight movie. Seat 12F was occupied by a man in a plain hoodie and jeans, his dark hair flecked with gray. His calloused hands rested on his daughter's small backpack, and his eyes, steady, watchful, but tired, scanned the cabin every few minutes. To everyone else, he was just another passenger. A single dad on his way home from a family trip. His name was Ethan Cole. "Daddy, can I get another juice?" his daughter, Lily, asked, her blue eyes wide with hope. Ethan smiled softly. "Sure, sweetheart, but that's the last one, okay? We don't want a sugar rush before landing." She giggled, nodding. He flagged down the flight attendant and asked politely for another orange juice. Nothing about him stood out, until the turbulence began. The plane gave a sudden lurch, throwing a few cups of coffee into the air. The fasten seatbelt sign blinked on, and the captain's voice crackled through the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, please return to your seats. We're experiencing a small issue with our autopilot system, but there's no need to worry, everything is under control." Ethan's head snapped up. "Autopilot issue," he muttered under his breath. His fingers twitched slightly, the kind of instinct born from years of training, not habit. Across the aisle, a young man in a bomber jacket noticed Ethan's reaction. His sharp eyes flickered over the older man's posture, the way he analyzed the sound of the engines. He tilted his head, studying him. When the turbulence worsened, passengers began to murmur nervously. The captain's voice came again, this time tense. Ladies and gentlemen, we're diverting to Wright Air Base due to technical difficulties. Please remain seated." Wright Air Base. Ethan froze. He hadn't heard that name in 10 years. It was the same base where he'd last flown, the same runway where his squadron had saluted him goodbye, before he left the Air Force forever. Lily clung to his arm as the plane jolted again. "Daddy, are we gonna be okay?" He squeezed her hand gently. "We're fine, baby, I promise." The descent was rough. As the aircraft neared the base, Ethan could see the familiar landscape out the window, the wide tarmac, the control tower, and beyond it, the hangars where F-22 Raptors gleamed like sleeping dragons. When the plane finally touched down, a fleet of ground crew vehicles rushed toward it. Among them were uniformed officers. Passengers whispered, wondering why military personnel were surrounding a commercial plane. The door opened, and a tall man in a flight suit boarded. His helmet was tucked under one arm, and the name patch on his chest read, CMDR. R. Hayes. "Folks," he said, raising his voice so everyone could hear, "I'm Commander Ryan Hayes, Wright Air Base. Please remain seated while our tech crew assists the cockpit." Ethan didn't move, though his eyes never left the commander. The name struck something deep inside him. Hayes. That couldn't be the same kid he'd trained years ago, could it? Then the commander's gaze swept the cabin, and froze on Ethan. For a long second, he stared as if he'd seen a ghost. His helmet slipped slightly in his grasp. "Sir," he whispered. Ethan looked away, hoping to avoid attention. "You've got the wrong guy," he murmured. But Hayes stepped closer, disbelief and awe in his eyes. "Sir, welcome back, Viper 1. The words hung in the air, slicing through the murmurs of the passengers. Every head turned. Ethan closed his eyes for a moment. He hadn't heard that call sign in a decade. Viper 1, the legend of the 302nd Fighter Squadron. The man who'd once led impossible missions, saved entire teams in combat, and vanished after the last tour. Lily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, why did he call you that?" Ethan sighed softly. "Old nickname, sweetheart." Hayes's voice shook with reverence. "Sir, I thought you were retired." "I am," Ethan said quietly. "Just a dad now." Hayes shook his head, smiling with disbelief. "You can't just stop being Viper 1. Before Ethan could respond, a loud bang echoed from the cockpit. The passengers gasped. The flight attendants screamed, "Fire in the avionics bay." Smoke began seeping from the front of the plane. Instinct overrode hesitation. Ethan handed Lily to a flight attendant. "Keep her safe." He sprinted down the aisle. The years melted away with every step. In the cockpit, the captain was coughing, trying to douse a small electrical fire. Ethan reached in, yanked the extinguisher from its clip, and sprayed the panel until the smoke cleared. Then, kneeling, he checked the controls. Circuit 3's burned out, he muttered. Backup relays fried too. The co-pilot stared at him, stunned. Sir. Who are you? Ethan didn't answer. His hands flew across the panel, flipping switches, rerouting systems. I need ground power now. He shouted toward the open door. Hayes was already there, headset on. You heard him. Ground power, now. Within minutes, the plane's system stabilized. The alarms stopped. Ethan exhaled slowly, backing away. It's secure. You're good to taxi. The captain gaped at him. How did you? Just a little muscle memory, Ethan said with a tired smile, wiping his hands on his jeans. By now, passengers were watching from their seats, phones half raised. Some whispered in amazement. Others clapped softly when the smoke alarms finally silenced. Hayes motioned toward the exit. Sir, if you'll come with me. The general's going to want to know you're alive. Ethan hesitated. I'm not coming back, Commander. That life's done. But Hayes's expression softened. With respect, sir, legends don't get to just disappear. The base still talks about Viper 1, the pilot who flew blind over Kandahar, guided 3 Raptors home on fumes, and never took credit. Ethan's jaw clenched. He remembered that mission too well. The chaos, the fire, the day he lost his wingman. The day he decided he couldn't be responsible for anyone's life again. Lily peeked from her seat, tears on her cheeks. Daddy, you're a hero. He knelt beside her. No, baby, I just did my job once. Hayes smiled softly. You did a lot more than that, sir. Outside, as the passengers were escorted off the plane, a black SUV pulled up. From it stepped a woman in full uniform, Major General Samantha Reed. Her silver hair was neatly tied, her presence commanding. When she saw Ethan, she froze. Cole, he straightened instinctively. Ma'am. She stepped forward, her eyes narrowing, as if confirming he wasn't a mirage. I buried your file. Everyone believed you were gone. I was, he said simply. Needed to be. She glanced at Lily, then back at him. Family. He nodded. My daughter. My world. Reed's tone softened. She looks like her mother. Ethan's eyes flickered down. Yeah, she does. Hayes, standing behind them, cleared his throat. General, with your permission, should we debrief him? Reed shook her head slowly. No, he's earned his peace. Then she looked at Ethan, her voice low. You saved that plane today. You could have walked away, but you didn't. He shrugged. Couldn't just sit there. Reed smiled faintly. You never could. She saluted him. The gesture was crisp, respectful, and it hit Ethan harder than he expected. He hadn't been saluted in a decade. Slowly, he returned it. Lily watched curiously. Daddy, why are you doing that? He smiled softly. Just saying goodbye to an old friend. Reed leaned closer, whispering so only he could hear. If you ever want back in, the call sign's still yours. He chuckled. Appreciate it, ma'am, but I've got homework duty tonight. She laughed quietly and stepped away. As the sun dipped behind the hangars, Ethan carried Lily down the steps, her head resting on his shoulder. Daddy, she murmured sleepily, were you really a pilot? Yeah, he said softly, his eyes distant. A long time ago. Do you miss it? He looked out at the runway, the sleek F-22s gleaming under the fading light. Sometimes, he admitted, but I've got everything I need right here. She smiled against his shoulder. You're the best, Daddy. Ethan kissed her forehead. That's all the call sign I'll ever need. Behind him, Hayes stood by the door, watching them go. He turned to the general. He really was the best, wasn't he? Reed nodded, eyes following the departing figure. The best I ever saw. Viper 1 never missed a mark. Still doesn't. As the SUV carrying Ethan and Lily disappeared down the airfield road, the sound of jets roaring to life echoed across the base, like a salute to the ghost who had returned, if only for a day. In the co-pilot's log later, one line would be added. Flight 709, safe landing credited to passenger in 12F, former USAF pilot, call sign, Viper 1. But Ethan would never mention it. To the world, he'd always be just a single dad from C-12F. And that was exactly how he wanted it.